But if you grow the seaweed up to its adult stage, then that's where the taste is going to be good.
Welcome to Ascend Your Story, where we talk to people in science, tech and research from the Ascent Media studio in the sunniest place on earth, Sunshine, in Melbourne's west, on the lands of the Wurundjeri people. I'm Sam O'Reilly, the director at Ascent Media, and after decades of filming, building radio studios and recording podcasts for others, it's super exciting to be here to bring the show to you. We've met many scientists, researchers and technologists on our shoots over the years who are doing amazing work, so we decided to create this podcast to help get their stories out there. Today's guest is a specialist in all things seaweed. She's a marine scientist at Deakin University. She's the co-chair of the scientific committee for the Australian Marine Science Association, and in 2022 was named a superstar of STEM. Dr Prue Francis, welcome to Ascend Your Story.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Now, one of my favourite parts of my job is filming and photographing marine life underwater. But when I was a kid, I hated the beach. I hated sand in my bathers. I hated getting dumped by the waves. And I especially hated the feeling of seaweed touching my feet. Why is seaweed so important?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And look, I don't think you're alone in the Australian population of having that feeling of, I've got to walk across that seaweed to get into the water. And that's often the first impression of many Australians living by the coast of what seaweed is. It's washed up on the beach. It's at the stage of when it's decomposing. It's not at its best. But underwater, it is an underwater forest of different colours, textures and forms. And not only is it beautiful to look at in that state and thriving state, it's also incredibly important for life underwater. It is the driver of the oxygen cycle underwater. It provides habitat and food for many marine life, and also not realising the connection that we have to seaweed is always sort of tell people that it does produce oxygen for us here on land. So I always say that the trees and the plants and everything, the terrestrial plants here on land are giving us one breath for our life. The second breath is coming from seaweed. And so just trying to understand that connection, how important it is for not only our marine ecosystems, but it's also incredibly important for us here on land as well.
You say saving the planet can start with seaweed. How do we get from saving seaweed to saving the planet?
Yeah, so it's seaweed. It's interesting. I've been a seaweed scientist now for quite some time. When I first started out many years ago, it wasn't talked about very often. And what we're now starting to see as technology and innovation is emerging here around the world, but also particularly here in Australia, we're starting to see the potential that seaweed can have in sustainability solutions. And what I mean by that is that seaweeds have these incredible bioactive compounds that we can, if we farm that seaweed, we can extract those compounds to then create a sustainable product. And one example of that has been putting seaweed into our clothing fibres. And another example also could be in the building industry, where we could use cement sheeting and have seaweed incorporated into that seaweed sheet. So technically reducing our environmental impact in the building industry as well. So there's many aspects that seaweed has been used in different industries, and also from health and beauty products as well. It's starting to get used more and more, and we're starting to see different choices come out into the market. So it's an untapped resource, and here in Australia we have an emerging seaweed industry, so we're not quite there yet. And the research technology is still progressing to try and find what those bioactive compounds can come from our Australian seaweed. And that's why we're so unique, that we do have such an amazing biodiversity of seaweeds. And in fact, down here in temperate southern Australia, we have southern coastline, which is otherwise known as the Great Southern Reef. And along that system, there are over 1,500 different species of seaweeds alone. And some of those are endemic to just that region. So you're not going to find them anywhere else in the world. And we don't really know too much about them. So it's an untapped resource. And so we need more R&D in that space to see what the potential of these seaweeds can have for those sustainable solutions into the future.
What role does seaweed have in agriculture?
Agriculture, one of the things that's being tested and is looking at ruminants, so your cows, your, cattle, sheep, looking at feeding a particular red seaweed, Asparagopsis, to those animals. And the reason they do that is to reduce their methane emissions. So those animals in the agriculture system produce a lot of methane through their burps and their farts. And this seaweed has a particular bioactive compound called bromoform, and that bromoform has been proven to reduce those methane emissions. So by putting a little bit into their diet, there is research coming out that is showing that methane production is being reduced. So in Australia, we have several farming companies that are growing the Asparagopsis, the red seaweed, and there is now farms around Australia that are utilising that bromoform into the cattle or the sheep diets.
So it's not going to replace hay or grass-fed cattle?
No. The idea, in fact, is you wouldn't necessarily have to feed. You've got two options. You could feed the whole seaweed as part of a diet supplement, or you extract the bromoform and put it into feed or diet or a supplement of some sort. So no, it's not replacing the main food item. It's just a supplement, like we would take a vitamin, so to speak, to supplement our diet. That's what you would do for that system. And the idea is that if the methane emissions from the agricultural industry could be reduced, it's going to make a huge impact in reducing our carbon footprint, not only in Australia but across the world, if we can do that, because agriculture plays a big contributor to our carbon emissions.
There are amazing photos and videos of you out in the ocean, but I've also seen some videos of your students making smoothies with a blender, seaweed smoothies. Big question is, what does it taste like?
We haven't tasted that. I don't know if we would be able to, because we sort of consider our seaweed our babies that we grow in our lab. So we're quite precious and protective of them, even though that we blend them to make them into smaller sections. So no, don't know what they taste like.
With a bit of banana, I'm sure it'll be okay.
Yeah. True. But if you grow the seaweed up to its adult stage, then that's where the taste is going to be good. And that's where the potential for that particular species can go hit our food market, but also there's lots of other potentials for that particular seaweed to go on to do amazing things too.
Now, the Great Barrier Reef up north gets a lot of attention around the world, but not many people know about the Great Southern Reef. Why should we be paying attention to it?
Yeah, it's a great question. And look, I've got a soft spot for both. And the Great Southern Reef is a huge interconnected system. And what I mean by interconnected is that the currents, the biological life, the different ecosystems that make up this stretch of coastline is all connected through the currents that are moving through these waters. And it's an 8,000 kilometre stretch of coastline. So it starts at the top of New South Wales, goes through Victoria, South Australia, Western Australia, all the way up to Kalbarri, and then, of course, down into Tasmania as well. And that whole coastline has been deemed a biodiversity hotspot. So not only do we have an amazing array of seaweeds in the Great Southern Reef, but we also have such a diversity of other species, such as our different fish species or lots of different invertebrates. And again, a lot of those are considered to be endemic to the Great Southern Reef. So it is a really, really unique system. And the reason why it hasn't, I guess, got much of a spotlight is because the name that we've given it is only relatively new. And that a group of scientists from back in 2015 gave it a collective name to try and raise the profile of it, because just like their tropical counterpart, the Great Barrier Reef, the Great Southern Reef is also facing pressures from climate change impacts. And so as a collective group working down in these ecosystems, we wanted to try and take action. And one of those ways was to start raising the profile of this temperate system so that we can have more funding to go out and do the research and the monitoring that's required to understand what's happening as we're seeing these climate pressures face our coastlines.
You've written a book, a children's book called The Great Southern Reef. Why was it so important for you to write a book for kids?
Yeah, so The Great Southern Reef, it was co-authored by a Deakin colleague, Paul Venzo, and it was off the back of a COVID idea. So we went into, as we all know, went into lockdown. We were all working remotely. It was quite a stressful time for many people. And one of the things that I was at home with my young children and noticing, I was reading a lot of children's books at the time, that there wasn't many ocean-related books that connected my children to their coastline. So there's, as a marine biologist, I obviously have a library full of lots of ocean-themed children's books, a bit biased in that regard, but a lot of them were tropical representations. And it was frustrating for me to read those stories to my children when they wouldn't necessarily see a turtle if we were to go for a snorkel in our local marine ecosystem. And knowing, education is a passion of mine. I've been a high school teacher. I've worked at an aquarium. So connecting people to the ocean is something that I've always wanting to do more of. And the children's book idea came from that, was that how can I bring that local temperate marine environment to the households of all the Australians living near the coast. And so we pitched the idea to CSO Publishing, and they took the idea on, and 2 years later it was published. So it was really exciting. And the great thing is there that, I have data that there's over almost 3,000 copies have been sold, and that is worldwide. We know that's headed off into countries like Norway, Brazil, the US. So it is reaching beyond the Australian homes, which is super exciting.
Well, as of last night, there was 3,001 copies because I ordered one, and I was really hoping at this section of the show, the doorbell would ring and I'd have to answer it and then bring out the book that I just bought. I'm very much looking forward to reading that to my son tonight. So thank you very much for writing something about our local waters. One of his favourites is Magic Beach, which hopefully yours also turns into a feature film and a stage show.
Well, you can only hope. And the main protagonist of the story is Professor Seaweed. So if they do need someone to play that role, I know someone.
Now, you also bring art into your education work. What role does art play?
Yeah, so art's super interesting that, going back to my comment about wanting to connect as many people as we can to the ocean, that comes back to the reason as to why to do that. And it's a concept called ocean literacy, and that means what does the ocean influence have on us, and how do we influence the ocean? And finding connection with the ocean doesn't necessarily have to be scientific concepts all the time. I think we've sort of been stuck in that little bubble of needing to know how the ocean operates, which is great because we do as a scientific community, but how do we then translate that to the wider community in a way that they can engage with? And sometimes those science concepts and facts may not hook everybody. And so art, storytelling and different ways is an alternative way to build that connection. And that's why I'm really passionate about working with various artists to try and break that lens of science communication can be done in many ways. And it's tapping into different communities that may not have been engaged in scientific facts as a way of communicating.
So you said you were a school teacher. What years did you teach?
So high school teacher. So I was a high school teacher for year 7 all the way up to year 12, and I taught in both Victoria and Queensland, so 2 different states. And I was mostly science and maths, of course, naturally science. And I'm very excited that I brought a lot of marine flavour into my teaching. So there's a lot of seaweed pracs that my students had to undertake with me.
So the seaweed has been a part of your life for a while then?
It certainly has, yeah. It's over 20-odd years now. It started off doing the seaweed project for my honours, which was a research project that I did after my bachelor had finished up, and that then transitioned into the PhD, which was on seaweed. So it sort of started then, and even though I've had different career pathways in between and went up into the tropical world of Australia, it's always been there as my driving passion for a lot of the things that I do in life.
Awesome. So you're a scientist, a children's book author, a science communicator, an academic. Where did you get your start to eventually become all of these things?
Yeah, so my I grew up in a small country town in up in northern Victoria called Kyabram. It was close to several rivers systems, so the Goulburn and the Murray River. And my family loved nature, loved being outdoors. So I spent a lot of time on the Murray River for school holidays, going camping, fishing with my dad, and just had this immense connection with nature and being around and in water. And I like to say that it was thanks to my family that we had the opportunity in the 90s to travel around Australia for 6 months. And during that time, I got to see some of Australia's spectacular coastlines and reef systems. So visiting the Great Barrier Reef, visiting Ningaloo. And as a 14-year-old in the water snorkeling, and a marine biologist as a tour guide showing you all these different things, my mind was blown away. A, I could see the bottom because on the Murray River, if you're swimming in there, you cannot see the bottom. And B, this amazing, seeing all these different patterns and colours and behaviours of fish and invertebrates all interacting with each other, and seeing this guide and having all this knowledge and being so passionate about telling somebody else about it. I remember getting back onto the boat, turning to my mum and dad and say, I'm going to be that one day. And so I always like to say that I travelled downstream to become a marine biologist. So started in the fresh and went down into the marine, and recognising that water is all interconnected. So the freshwater systems, even though that's where the origin passion sort of formulated, it's certainly recognising that's all interconnected, that the freshwater does eventually wash up into the ocean. So influences up where my home roots are. Whatever we do up there, whether it's agricultural or any other systems that might be using that water, that it does impact further down into the ocean too.
What came first, the love for science or love for the ocean?
Probably water, and then the ocean, and then the science last, if you can believe that. I did not particularly engage with science at high school. I think because I could see the connection of water and science coming together at that point. I loved all the PE outdoor ed type subjects that I was doing. So I think this science came later because when I went to university to study marine science and freshwater science, that I suddenly went, I can see why those science concepts make sense now, because I've got the passion behind it. We're doing it in a context of water. I think the science sort of fell into that as I went through my studies at university.
What were your biggest challenges in starting a career like this?
I think the biggest challenge for me has been, I've been very, very fortunate in my career. I've had wonderful opportunities, wonderful positions throughout my lifetime, and I'm very, very grateful for all of that. But one of the challenges for me is not necessarily that's impacted me personally, but seeing the next generation and the challenges that they now face coming into such a changing climate, and really passionate about mentoring the next generation to face what they're going to face into the future. So that's sort of the one challenge that it's not so much of a burden, but I'm empowered to help be a driver and a changer of that. And I guess one of the challenges that we have as the scientific community is trying to change policy and make the impact into that government level. And sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge, and navigating through that space, understanding how government and politics work has certainly been something that is new to me, and something I've been embracing of late as well. And I think it's something that I will continue to do into the future as well, is be that scientific voice and keep lobbying for change.
Supporting girls in STEM has been a big passion for you. Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, so that's super important for me because, as I said, growing up Northern Victoria, didn't have a huge amount of people coming to our school to show us what career options could be available to us into the future. So for me, super passionate about building that visibility in schools, and you can't be what you can't see. That's the motto that I like to take on. So I go into schools to chat about being a marine scientist, chat about STEM, and in doing so, hoping for them to just go, all right, might not want to be a marine scientist or a seaweed specialist, but this person's just come in and has been super passionate about a role. Maybe there's opportunity for me to find my passion and find my career, and whether that's through STEM or something else is where I sort of see my job done there. And just from an Australian perspective generally too, is that we need more STEM professionals into our workforce to drive that innovation and that technology that Australia needs into the future. So, just chipping away at doing that is something that I'm really passionate about, and particularly focusing on girls, because girls' engagement in STEM tends to drop off when they get to high school. So, trying to go into schools, particularly around that year 9, year 10 age, to hook them back into, where they're passionate about this, and showcasing that or misconception of what STEM might be for that age group, and bringing back the fun of what STEM can be, and yet being that visual presence in those schools that girls can sort of see, and be a role model perhaps for them when they go to make those career decisions in the future.
So in engineering, you have an 85 to 15 men to women breakdown, but in the aquatic science space, it's closer to 50-50. Why do you think there's that ideal ratio in your area?
Yeah, so there is a 50-50 bubble. Preface that with that tends to drop off in leadership. So if in those leadership roles, you then start to see the skew of more males to females. So I think we definitely have the equal spread in the career workforce in the marine industry or aquatic industry. I think it drives aquatic sciences, drives the empathy of the interest of what females can bring to those roles, particularly on the conservation fronts and restoration aspects of aquatic science. So I think that's sort of where that 50-50 has come into play. But what's really important is trying to empower those females in that workforce to step up into those leadership roles, or give them the opportunity to step up into those leadership roles into the future, because we are starting to see that, if they do go off to have a family, they have that break in career and then a sort of, step away from that, and then perhaps won't get that opportunity to do that leadership. So, I think it certainly does drive it through the empathy that a female can bring into those aquatic sciences, as to why that might be that 50-50 split that we're starting to see, which wasn't always the case, but it has got to 50-50 now, which is great.
So tell me about your work at the Queenscliff Marine Science Centre. Yeah,
so down at Queenscliff Marine Science Centre is Deacon's research and teaching hub for everything marine, which is fantastic. So I'm a lecturer down there at the centre, where I do a mix of teaching the next generation of marine scientists as well as research. And I've got a research team based down there, and we focus on two aspects of research that I'm passionate about, and that's ocean literacy and kelp restoration.
And you've got Swan Bay right there that you can do your field trips outside the door.
That's exactly right. So our students, when they come out to our centre, it's about a 40-minute drive from our main campus here in Geelong, and there we have the opportunity to go down to Rocky Shore, which is 5 minutes away. We just step out the door and we have a Ramsar listed wetland system, Swan Bay, at our doorstep. And then we've also got the opportunity to go out onto Port Phillip Bay with our marine vessels. So our students are incredibly lucky to have those opportunities to gain that field work experience, as well as our research team that's based out there. There's probably about 50-odd different academics and PhD students and honours students that are based out there conducting research along the Victorian coastline. So having that as the central hub for that research is absolutely fantastic, and we have that synergy of all working collaboratively together to try and solve some of those challenges that our coastline is facing.
And the building itself is beautiful. It's got the grasses on the roof, and what's happening underneath the floating floorboards there?
So it's grass. Everyone knows the building is the grass on top. So yep, and with the snakes that drop off randomly into the tea room space.
Oh wow!
But yeah, we also, it's a very unique system or centre, I should say, that it has fresh seawater on tap. So we have access to fresh seawater that comes in from Port Phillip Bay. We can access 800,000 litres per day to the site, and that water is pumped. We have holding tanks obviously on site, but that water then pumps into our building, into all our different laboratories that we have in there. And the water is actually under the floor. So that's why you walk along the floor and it'll be a little bit uneven. A lot of people are like, what's wrong with this floor? And it's like, that's where our seawater is below that. And at certain times of the year, we have to pull up all those panels and actually do what's called a pigging event, which cleans out those pipes to make sure that we're getting that fresh flow of seawater coming through. So it's a very unique system. And the idea too is that one side of the building is where all our aquarium systems are based, where we can do the research that we want to do. And then we can walk across the corridor where all our analytical equipment and lab spaces are. So we don't actually have to send out to another lab space somewhere else. It's just a one-stop shop at this centre. And we have different labs that are set up to do various different research. So we've got a nutrition lab, we've got a genetics type lab. And so there's lots of different spaces that we can use and work together.
And it's parts of it are open to the public?
Yeah, so the centre is a co-located facility. So the Victorian Fisheries Authority are the main caretakers of the building. So Deakin actually has a long-term lease with the VFA, and their VFA, the Victorian Fisheries Authority, they have a marine and freshwater discovery centre, which is their education centre for the VFA, and that's located at the front of the centre, and that is open to the public usually during high tourism times like school holidays and over the summer period, but more so it targets school groups to come in and do excursions and different activities with them. They have a small aquarium space, teaching labs in there, and they also go out into the local marine environment and do snorkeling, kayaking and vessel experiences with different schools around the region as well. And you walk to work every day and there's always some bus turning up with another school group, and it's just great to see the children turning up as I'm turning up for my work day, that they're super excited and pumped for the day that they have ahead of them. And so it's a wonderful facility that the Discovery Centre is set up there. We also have other agencies that are located at that site too. So the Nature Conservancy have an office that's based there. We do a lot of collaborative research with the Nature Conservancy. And there's also a commercial group located on site too, the Victorian Shellfish Hatchery, and they grow spat for mussel and oyster aquaculture facilities across Australia. And the great thing about having all these different agencies located there is our Deakin Marine science students get to have exposure to those different industries, and a lot of our students will go and do work placement with these organisations, or even better, obtain employment with them into the future. So it's what we call a Victorian Marine Hub of marine science that's here in Victoria, which is fantastic.
Yeah, great. Now, you recently travelled to Indonesia with one of your students. What did you take from that experience?
Yeah, I did. So I travelled to a little coastal island called Bintan Island, which is a 40-minute ferry ride from Singapore, so very close to that coastline. And I travelled with my PhD student who works for BRIN, which is a equivalent organisation we would call CSIRO here in Australia. And so Hassan, the PhD student, is doing a PhD project that's looking at trying to understand how the community on Bintan Island understand and interact with the seagrass ecosystem that surrounds the island. And the driver behind that is that Indonesia has a huge seagrass population across all their many different islands, and the government is looking at ways of how to protect and conserve that from a blue carbon perspective. And on the other side, they're starting to see a huge decline of these seagrass ecosystems. So they're looking at ways of how they can manage it and restore it to capitalise on this blue carbon initiative. And so Bintan Island is a case study for this project where we're looking to understand if we could potentially introduce what's called a tourism fee for that island. So if you come to visit the island to go for a snorkel or to experience the beauty of the island, in doing so, you would pay a small fee, and let's say it's $5 to come to that island, and that $5 then goes into the management of that seagrass ecosystem. Before we can sort of implement such a fee, you need to understand the different stakeholders and the local industry as to whether or not that's something that they would like to do. And so the first step has been to understand all the stakeholders who would be involved, so the government, from the national all the way down to the local level, experts in the seagrass management systems to get their ideas and implement to understand, is this a concept that's worthy to look at? And then also connecting with the locals and seeing whether the tourism industry is viable for this particular island. And it is the main economy for this island. They do rely on the tourists that come to this island. So we are now at the moment in the process of why I went to this island was we were deploying a survey to the local Indonesian tourists that were visiting that island. And we were asking them questions around their understanding of what a seagrass ecosystem was and their willingness to pay this fee. So at the moment, this survey has asked 200 odd different Indonesians at the moment. We're aiming to have a 500 participant response rate. So not only are we going to be asking the local Indonesian tourists, but also international tourists that visit the island as well. And so that will make up that 500 sample size. And so while I was there, I was helping to liaise with the local government, local marine organisations, NGOs, to sort of see whether or not this idea could potentially work on the island, and then also going to the local resorts to see if they would be willing to deploy the survey on our behalf as well. And I spent 2 days on the local beach watching these surveys go ahead, and it was just absolutely remarkable, huge enriching cultural experience for me to see the local Indonesian population enjoying their holiday and having lots of different interactions and learning more about their culture in such a wonderful setting on a beach in a little hut and jumping in the water to see their beautiful seagrass ecosystem. So it was a memorable moment. I really do hope I get back to Big Ted Island before the project ends, which will probably be next year sometime.
Sounds like you're living up the marine scientist dream.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you get to do did you get to get in the water while you were there at least?
I did get to go in the water, yeah, definitely. And I also got to get taken out by a local village where they have a hut out on the water, and anyone from the local village can go out and use this. So whether you had a party or a family function, you can hire out this hut. And so they took us out there to have lunch, and we're just surrounded by this beautiful water, and the local villagers were out fishing or bleeding, which was collecting shells in the water, and it was just wonderful. It's one of those moments that you just had to pinch yourself that you were able to experience something like that and be welcomed into a community with open arms. It was just really lovely.
And are you a snorkeler or a scuba diver?
Well, I technically can do both, but I haven't been scuba diving for almost 13 years because 2 children came along and it got a bit challenging to take off on a weekend to go scuba diving. I do hope that I can get them into the water soon so that it could be a mum and 2-daughter trip. But snorkeling, yes. So I take
they'd be almost old enough to buddy you and get their ticket.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And hopefully we can start that process soon. And but snorkel for work when we're out doing our kelp collections, and then also take the kids out for snorkels over summer. They're not too keen to go with me during winter, which I'm not sure why. But yeah, we get in the water as much as we can.
I'll be out in the water in South Australia next week, diving in Whyalla with the giant cuttlefish.
Yeah, fantastic.
That would be pretty amazing. And then around the other side of Adelaide to see the leafy sea dragons. Which
wonderful.
The weedy sea dragon has been my favourite aquatic animal for the last few years, but I think the leafy might take its place. It's pretty amazing looking creature.
2 on my bucket list to go see in South Australia. And the weedy, I do have a soft spot for the weedy sea dragon because it's Victoria's marine emblem. So it is, being a Victorian, that's something that, I obviously have a soft spot for that one. And it's certainly endemic to our area and also showing declines in the population. So it was just a beautiful, beautiful creature to look at with all the patterns and colours.
In my research for this interview, I found out that there's a third dragon that I had no idea about. Do you know much about the ruby sea dragon?
I've heard of it, but no, I don't know too much. When it comes into the fish realm, it's where I kind of take a little bit of a step back. I was like, give me the seaweed.
Well, they look like seaweed.
They do. It's very, very true.
They'd be the closest animal
they
to
don't
your work.
photosynthesize like seaweed.
Now, you are a part of the Australian Marine Sciences Association. This year's conference is in Melbourne. Tell me about the conference.
Yeah, so AMSA, as we collectively like to call it, save us on the long acronym, has an annual conference every year, and it tends to move across different locations around Australia. And so this year it is in Melbourne. It's being held at the Sofitel. It will be on in July, so it's only a couple of weeks away, which is super, super exciting. And so it's the 13th to the 17th of July, and we're focusing on a particular theme this year, and that is harmony in marine systems. And what we're trying to really do is bring Western science with traditional ecological knowledge together, looking at ways of how we work alongside together, bringing not just the science, but that transdisciplinary approach to solving these ocean challenges that we're facing. So we've encouraged all the marine community to come in and chat about what they're working in that space under that theme. And so we've got a jam-packed event, 4 days full of amazing science that we're super excited to have everybody down in Melbourne with their hopefully nice warm jackets, beanies and gloves. So it will be quite fresh. And the most exciting part of this conference, well, what I'm most excited about, is we're hosting a public event on one of the nights and it's now you can get tickets. That is called Why Oceans Matter. And we've got an exciting panel of marine experts and youth members that will be joining the stage to answer that. Why does oceans matter? And it'll be an interactive experience where we invite the public to come in and be part of this experience, to chat to experts in the room, as well as the marine science community to come in and be audience members. And we're really encouraging youth and children and families to come to this event where they can become more connected with the ocean and understand some of the challenges that the ocean's facing, but why it's incredibly important for us as humans. So this is an event that is new for our AMSA conference, and we're really trying to bridge the gap between science knowledge and the community, and bring that together so we can be working more that two-way engagement and having those conversations beyond our scientific community.
And what else should we expect at the conference?
So we've got lots of different talks going at different times during the day. That they're either going to be 12-minute, 6-minute fast talks. We've also got a poster night where people can go and look at the amazing research that's happening in posters. There's going to be workshops before the conference as well that people can engage with. There's also field trips for the folks at the end of the week when you just want to go for a snorkel. They've got some of those amazing experiences where if you maybe didn't get cold enough on land, you can get even colder in the water at the end of the week. And then there's also the networking experience. We're going to have booths that will be available for people to interact with our different sponsors, and all the lunchtime dinners, afternoon teas is where I think the most value add is in these conferences. It's where you get to go and have a chat with somebody. You've gone and listened to their talk, thought it was really cool, go and follow up with that. And it's where these new ideas, new collaborations are often sparked at those afternoon teas over a coffee. So that's what we're really excited about, is to see everybody chatting and talking with each other. In the mornings of each session and the afternoons, we also have invited plenary speakers, and we're super excited with the lineup of who we have coming, and can't wait to hear from all of those speakers as well. So it's exciting. It's going to be amazing. I'm probably going to need a really, really good nap by the end of the week.
I can imagine.
And yeah, we look forward to those. It's not too late to still register for anyone that wants to come along. And if not, come along to the public event at night and meet us all. And we look forward to inviting and interacting with as many people as we can.
We'll be attending this year. We'll also be exhibiting our film and photography work at the in one of the booths, and we'll be also the official photographer for the event. So we are all over it, and we can't wait. I think it's going to be a great networking event, and can't wait to see what everyone's working on.
Yeah, and we're so excited that you're joining us, and thank you for doing so. It's going to be fun, and I can't wait to see some of the images that comes from this. And Deacon's going to have a booth, so we might be side by side and be about to say good day. Yeah. I'm sure we'll run into each other a lot during the conference anyway.
So with my trip to South Australia next week, we'll be capturing some 360 vision of our dives with the cuttlefish and the leafy sea dragons. And at our booth, we'll have a VR set up so people can come by and witness a dive with the cuttlefish in 360. Put on the headset and get underwater, but stay dry and warm.
So maybe I can tick my bucket list off without having to travel to South Australia.
That was exactly what we're offering there.
Yeah, great. Look forward to it.
Now, where can people register to attend?
Yeah, so we do have a website set up for the AMSA registration. So it is www.amsa, so AMSA 2025 .amsa.asn.au. That's a mouthful. Just go and Google Australian Marine Science Association Conference 2025. I'm sure the link will pop up.
Or even just AMSA 2025. That works as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. And there'll be information about the program is up there, so you can go and have a look at what's happening and all our amazing speakers that are lined up too.
Great. Now, what's coming up for you?
So next week, I'm jumping on a plane and I'm heading to France. I'm going to the International Temperate Reef Symposia in Brest. This is an international conference that's held every 2 years, and the last one was down in Tasmania in Hobart. So this is the chance to go internationally, because it is an international-based conference, to go and talk about temperate reef systems. So I'll be presenting alongside a few members of my team, where we're talking about the work we've been doing in the kelp restoration space, and looking forward to seeing some of the other work that's been done globally in kelp restoration, because it is a worldwide issue of kelp declining. So looking forward to connecting with a lot of folk over there. And then from there, I think I have a few days break straight into AMSA conference when I get back. And then after that, we do have a few experiments lined up back at Queenscliff, but I'm hoping for a relatively quiet and back end of the year. So maybe taking some leave over summer and getting out into the water and relaxing with the kids. So it's a busy couple of weeks coming up. We've got lots of student research projects that are happening too, which is super exciting. And there's never a dull moment. There's always something fun and exciting happening. That's why I absolutely love my job and super passionate about it. So yeah, we'll see what happens after July when things settle down from the traveling point of view, and the experiments are starting to ramp up, and that's always fun too.
Now, all these things coming up, and this is straight after you've just been in Canberra for a few days. Tell me about your stint in Canberra.
Yeah, that's right. So I've just got back from the National Marine Science Committee Symposia. This was a 2-day event where a group marine science community came together, where we were presenting 22 white papers on what we consider to be the priorities to help inform the next decadal National Marine Science Plan. So we've already had a plan in place, which was from 2015 to 2025. So recognising that we need to do another one, and knowing that in 10 years, priorities change, a lot of research and technology emerges from that time. So needed to review that, and these white papers are a way to showcase what our now new priorities are. And so my involvement in that has been to co-lead one of those 22 white papers. So I've been co-leading that with some colleagues, where we focused on looking at how ocean literacy, how marine science education and marine science training can play in enabling the marine science challenges that we're facing here in Australia to help solve that, or help build our research and development in that space in the future. So over the course of the 2 days, so I presented that, co-presented that paper on the Wednesday, and then yesterday on the Thursday we were wrapping up as to what were the main themes that were coming across. And it was really exciting to see that after our presentation, a lot of the other white papers were also bringing up we need more ocean literacy to build, help build that gap between science, facts, and the community. And so at the end, we all got asked to recommend what's the one term that really stands out that you think needs to be in this next marine science plan, and really excited to see that ocean literacy was one of the top ones that people were recommending in that room. So that's really exciting because we actually haven't seen ocean literacy in a policy type format like that here in Australia until now. And also the Sustainable Ocean Plan, which is Australian government draft plan that was written by the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water. And that plan was the first official document policy that had ocean literacy for an actual driver and a need for the Australian community. And that's the first time we've seen that happen. So it's a really exciting time for us to see where that goes. There's a bunch of us researchers and practitioners here in Australia that are ready to develop a strategy that can take Australia into that next step in ocean literacy and bridging that gap that we currently have.
Thank you very much for joining us, Prue. Where can people learn more about what you do?
Yeah, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Very active on there and more than happy to respond to any messages if you want to reach out. But otherwise, I do keep relatively updated on my website, which is www.prue.francis.com. But otherwise, feel free to send me an email through my Deakin email address and connect that way. And more than happy to have a chat with anyone that might be interested.
Well, Dr. Prue Francis, thank you for joining us today to Ascend Your Story.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to the Ascent Media team for putting the show together. Producer Jonathan Brown, all things production Michael Nguyen, and intro sequence by Nico Scott. I'm Sam O'Reilly. Ascend Your Story is an Ascent Media production. We tell the stories of amazing people in science, tech, research and more through video, photography, live streaming and podcasts like this one. You can see our work and check out all of the other episodes at ascentmedia.com.au.